I said, you mean my bank balance would change if I had a list of goals? He said, drastically. That day I became a willing student how to set goals. And sure enough, learning how to set goals changed my life. And I often wondered why no one had ever taught me how to set goals up until age 25. I went to high school, but if they offered it, I missed it. I went to college for a year, never heard it. I worked for Sears. Really. And to my knowledge, Sears never taught it. Right? How to set goals. So here I am, age 25, married, my family's starting, I've been to college, I'm working, and I still don't know how to set goals. But fortunately, when I was 25, I met the man who taught me how, and it revolutionized my whole life. Economically, socially, personally, it's incredible. So I want to share with you tonight what Mr. Shove shared with me, how to set goals. It can be a life changer. Okay. The next subject is the negative part of the seminar. Life is part negative, so we got to talk about the negative. And this subject is called diseases of attitude. Diseases of attitude. There's a lot of things that can wreck your chances to do well. We live in a rather dangerous world, so you got to be not only wise, you got to be careful. Now, attitude diseases are just as bad as physical diseases, right? High blood pressure, heart trouble. I mean, a lot of things lace your chances to do well. So you've got to be careful. And attitude diseases are deadly. I mean, they'll destroy all the good things you start. Okay? So we'll go through those attitude diseases, how to spot them, how to look for them, what they are, and the cure. And I'm a pro on these because I've had them all, so I can give you excellent advice on these. Now, the last subject we're going to consider tonight is called the day that turns your life around. The day that turns your life around. And under this subject, we're going to talk about the emotions that can change your life. Human beings are emotional creatures, and emotions are powerful for life change. Now, of course, emotions are so powerful they can go either way on you. Emotions can either build or destroy. So you really have to employ emotions properly. We call civilization the intelligent management of human emotions. If you can intelligently apply your emotions in the right direction, no telling what can happen. Could turn your life around one day would be sufficient. So we'll talk about those. Okay. Now that's a lot to cover in one evening, but we'll keep at it here and see if we can't get it all done. I'd like to have you now jot down the theme of the seminar. Every seminar should have a theme, I guess. We've got one. It's on some of our literature if you happen to notice it, but if you didn't, for your notes, here it is. The theme of the seminar goes like this. The major key to your better future is you. That's the theme of our seminar tonight. The major key to your better future is you. And I'd like to have you underline two words just to give it some added punch. Underline the word major and the word you, so that it reads, the major key to your better future is you.
So they say if you take 100 people at graduation from college or graduation from high school, one of those people will become wealthy in the course of their lifetime. 3 will become well off. 15 will have a good deal of money set aside, and 80% will be working, dead or broke at the end of their careers at the age of 65. So when I was in my 30s, I did not graduate from high school. I finished in the half of the class that made the top half possible. They say everybody's good for something, even if it's to be a bad example. And I was a bad example. They used to say, if you don't watch out, you'll end up like Tracy. If you don't watch out, you'll end up like Brian Tracy. And that would scare people into doing their homework. And so I left school in the 12th grade. I got a leaving certificate, not a diploma, a leaving certificate, and it says goodbye. That's one of those little emojis waving goodbye. And so my first job was washing dishes in the back of a small hotel for $1.12 an hour. I remember when I got promoted to $1.14 an hour, that was a major event in my life. And for years, I worked in laboring jobs and I washed cars. I washed dishes until I lost that job, and then I washed cars until I lost that job, and then I washed floors for a janitorial service until I washed that job. And when you're young, losing is another word for involuntary career redeployment. That's where you get a chance to explore new jobs unexpectedly. Today, they give you 2 weeks' notice. In those days, they give you about 2 minutes' notice. We won't need your services anymore. Here's your check. There's the door. Goodbye. And so I would go from place to place and worked, and I lived in my car, and I did all kinds of things. But I always had this fantasy, undeserved, by the way, that I was going to become wealthy someday until I had this opportunity to speak. And as I began to study the subject, I learned some wonderful things that they're so simple, it means that everybody can become wealthy. What you need is a dependable source of cash flow. That's really important. And Life Advantage is a wonderful source of cash flow, because all you have to do is just pump the well and the cash flow just pours down. Just keep filling the buckets, keep filling the buckets. And this company has only one aim in life, is to help you fill the well, is to pump the pump and have the cash flow. Then the question is, what do you do with the cash flow? And that's a whole nother thing. So I'm not going to talk to you about that, but what I found was that there were 21 secrets. And so I recorded these and I gave them as talks and so on. Everybody loves the subject of becoming wealthy. And people started to come back to me after as little as a year and say, because of your talk, I'm wealthy now.
Operate out of your imagination, not your memory. Because whenever you look at where you want to go, I'm wanting to warn you, you will have some conversation back here after you go through the data that you've experienced in life saying you can't do it. And so what you want to begin to do is ignore that inner conversation. Well, most people, ladies and gentlemen, when something happens to them, what they do is they begin to believe that that's the way it is. That's the way it's always been. And they can't see the possibility of it being any different. Example. Before April 1954, the common belief, the universal belief, because it had been tried again and again and again, and people had failed, the belief was that man was not physically capable of breaking the 4-minute barrier, that he could not run a mile in less than 4 minutes. That was the belief on the planet. It had never been done. But here's what happened, ladies and gentlemen. Roger Bannister came along, and he broke the 4-minute barrier. Now here's what's significant about that. Since that time, up to this day, over 20,000 people have done it, including high school kids. What changed? 20,000 people, what changed? Here's what happened when they got on the track. They knew it had been done. And because they knew it had been done, there was a new belief about this barrier, about this goal that was unreachable. And those 20,000 people got in a race believing, knowing in their heart that someone had done it, that it's possible, that they could do it. And I'm saying that if you know anybody that had some goal, some dream, something they wanted to do, and they did it, then I'm saying that you know in your heart that if someone has done it, then you can do it. It's possible. And that if someone can make their dream become a reality, that it's possible that you can make your dream become reality. And so as you begin to look at where you want to go, beginning to embrace that, it's possible. I'm blessed and highly favored. I've got a lot going for me. I got some good stuff in me. And it's possible that I can bring my greatness out here in the universe. That I can do what I want to do. It's possible I can write my own book. I can have my own business. I can take the trip and travel around the world. It's possible. I can bounce back from adversity and reinvent my life. It's possible.
You don't experience life, you experience the part of life you focus on, right? What's wrong is always available, so is what's right. In fact, if you're wanting to change but not changing, it's because some of your needs are met by what you're doing and some of them aren't. That's why you're in that push-pull, but you don't usually do enough until you're pushed over the edge. Like smoking a cigarette, what does it give people? Comfort, because You take a breath of cigarette, you take a nice, slow, deep breath in and take it out, it calms the nervous system, right? It's something that they're comfortable with. It's variety. If they're all stressed out and then they start to breathe differently, it's variety in the body. For some people, they did originally for significance. I'm cool, I'm smoking. Or today, it's not really that cool to most people, but for some generations, some places it is. Some people see it as a connection with themselves. But if all of a sudden you're now in a relationship with somebody who doesn't smoke, and you really love them and you want their total love and attention, and they're completely disgusted by cigarettes, now my needs for love, right, are really strong, and my need for this comfort is really strong, and so you have this push-pull. And then some people make the shift, some people don't.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what you said to me really rung a bell for me, and we spoke a bit about it earlier. Like, I came to a point in my life, there was one point earlier when I left the monastery where I really struggled with my health, which I've spoken about before. But even more recently, and it's interesting, you were 31, I'm 34 now, and it was probably around a similar time, 30, maybe around 30 years old, where I realized that I had two choices. I either had to slow down or I had to up my focus on my health.
Right.
And that's why I'm so excited about this book for the world to read.
Yeah.
Because you're giving us opportunities and access to thought and ideas and practices and medicine that can help us up our game of our health.
Yeah, massively.
Because often what we do is we choose to slow down. We choose to just go, okay, well, I'm just going to do less.
Yeah.
And you and I think we both connect on the fact that actually giving and service and contribution and making an impact on such big needs that I was just like, I don't want to stop though. Like, just as you said with the energy point, I don't want to not be able to do as much and give more. So how do I change my health? And that simple decision, it's what led me to be attracted to what you're doing in this book and the work in this area. Talk to us a bit about that energy piece. In the book, you talk a lot about boosting your energy through natural compounds.
Yes.
And when I was reading about this, I was fascinated because we're not hearing about this everywhere.
If somebody were to tell you 5 years ago that you could reverse aging, people would laugh at you. But today, there are billions and billions of dollars being spent by the richest people in the world, mostly in Silicon Valley, and some of the greatest scientists in the world. And there have been breakthroughs in the last 5 years that are amazing. So there's a man named Dr. Sinclair, David Sinclair from Harvard. He's probably the #1 longevity expert in the world, and I write about him in the book. And one thing is he's 53 chronologically, but he's 33 biochemically. I've applied what he's taught me for 6 months now, since I met him, 7 months, maybe 8 months now. And I'm 62, but I'm 51. My goal is to get it down to 41 or 42 if I possibly can. But you go, how's that possible? Well, there are ways of reversing, everybody knows their body's made of stem cells, I'm sure by now. And there's ways of reversing the process of a stem cell, literally from skin back to pluripotent, where it can become anything. The man who did that was Dr. Yamanaka, won the Nobel Prize for it. David Sinclair took his work, applied it to reversing the aging, and he started with mice. And he took these mice that had glaucoma, so they burned out the nerves in the eyes, and those don't regrow. And he's the first time, he'll probably win a Nobel Prize from this, he reversed the aging process and grew back their eyes so they have sight again, to give you an idea.